panels, we have a keynote speech from a senator who has devoted her career to fighting for working people and the most vulnerable. Senator Cortez Masto's focus on protecting consumers from financial fraud and abuse since her first term in 2017 has led to greater economic opportunity, a more equitable economy, and safer communities for all. She's been a fierce advocate for consumer protection and expanding access to affordable housing for all Americans, making sure that community development and housing dollars reach the most disinvested communities. Her strong voice in Congress helped prompt the Federal Housing Finance Agency and the White House to prioritize reform of the federal home loan bank system alongside far-reaching reforms initiated by FHFA, which would benefit hundreds of thousands would-be homebuyers and renters across the country. CFA is leading the coalition for federal home loan bank reform to push these issues, and we greatly appreciate the work she's doing to move this issue forward in Congress and beyond. I mentioned that we have a panel coming up on manufactured housing, and I want to acknowledge her bill to provide funding for reinvestment in manufactured home communities. It's known as the Preservation and Reinvestment Initiative for Community Enhancement Act, or the quote-unquote PRICE Act. Finally, Senator Cortez Masto has introduced bills focusing on protecting the CFPB, going after marketplace manipulators, and providing better support of consumers who've been impacted by fraud. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome Senator Cortez Masto and thank her for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Get your coffee, settle in. It's going to be an interesting time, and I'm so glad. I'm actually really thrilled to join all of you and the Consumer Federation of America. You've really all done incredible work. I'm not sure most people know until we see you on the headlines. We were just talking about this and the work that you do in your states. At the end of the day, it really is to ensure that our markets are really working for the people, and that's made a huge impact in my home state of Nevada. So you will always have me as a partner. I am here this morning to welcome you to the conference, welcome you to DC, but also, most importantly, to thank all of you and to thank the CFA. I have to thank Susan, incredible CEO. I need to thank all of the staff, small but mighty staff of the CFA. And I also want to thank and call out both Sharon Cornelison and Kate again for the incredible work that they're doing on housing. We have all seen how corporations and scammers take advantage of everyday Americans. I saw it all the time. If you don't know, I was Attorney General of Nevada for 8 years, and a lot of the work I did was protecting consumers. With the help of consumer advocacy groups in my state, we were able to push back and fight back and protect those consumers. That's why we need all of you. We need you to step in and continue to hold people accountable for their fraud. And it's why the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created, and thankfully, it's still standing after the Supreme Court. But like the CFPB, Consumer Federation of America, protects people in so many important sectors. One that I especially want to highlight today is housing, and how we really finance affordable housing in this country. We all know there's a need for it, but getting there and building it is a challenge. And we also know that throughout the country, the homes are not there to either buy or rent at affordable prices. I hear it from consumers and constituents in Nevada all the time. To address this, Congress actually created the Federal Home Loan Bank, that's why it's called Federal Home Loan Bank in the title, to help financing housing and community development. The federal home loan banks have a mission to support housing in our communities, but they are not doing nearly enough. They're subsidized by the taxpayers, they're exempt from federal, state, and local taxes, and they actually have $1 trillion in assets. But even with all of that income, they're only required to spend 10% of it on housing. 10% on housing. That's a fraction of what it should be, and I think it's outrageous. When I found out that the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco wasn't even investing in Nevada, Zero in Nevada. I introduced the Federal Home Loan Bank's Mission Implementation Act to make sure that they were pulling their weight in our communities, and most importantly, to let them know I'm watching, and I recognize what they weren't doing in my state. I also requested that the Federal Housing Agency launch a full-scale review of the Federal Home Loan Bank system. CFA saw the opportunity and seized it. CFA has been my lead partner focusing on the Federal Home Loan Banks, and our work together has made a big difference. And I'm here to tell you, when you are here, you're advocating, or you're learning, and we're working together, you can make change. And that is why it's important we continue to partner. CFA knew how critical a review of the Federal Home Loan Banks would be. They got to work founding the Coalition for FHLB Reform, staffing it with the incredible Sharon and Katie, and working with me and my staff to demand more investment in affordable housing. CFA has made this a priority. They are organizing housing groups, they're hosting webinars, they're publishing materials explaining how the Federal Home Loan Banks can and should be doing more. I know you're dedicating a lot of resources to this, making it clear why it matters, and I cannot thank you enough. Thank you for everything that you all are doing. That work is paying off. Thanks to our efforts, the Federal Home Loan Banks promised to provide an additional 5% of their net income for housing and community development. That's an additional $334 million a year. Now, it's not as much. It's not nearly as much as what I've called for, which is actually in my legislation, 20%, but it's a start. It's a start and a focus, and we're bringing them to the table. In Nevada, the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco provided a $10 million down payment assistance fund to help working families buy homes, and awarded $4.8 million to build more affordable rental properties. This is what we can do when we work together and ensure that we're bringing individuals and agencies to the table to ensure that they're focused on our communities when it comes to this affordable housing crisis. Helping people is really what it's all about for me, and I know for all of you. I believe the theme today is protecting our most vulnerable consumers. Our seniors, our veterans, our hardworking families have earned their benefits, and they shouldn't have to fight off corporations and scammers to claim them. My focus. But I'm here to tell you, there's not enough of us, so those that are there, we need to stick together. There's always the intent to take away your financing, think that what the work we're doing is too broad or over-regulated, or whatever you want to call it. They're gonna call it out as something negative, and we need to stick together, because at the end of the day, the only people standing with those consumers are us, and they need those advocates. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, and that's why I have additional legislation I just want to put on your radar. The first is the End Double Taxation of Successful Consumer Claims Act. This would help ensure that people who win fraud cases actually receive the full amount of money they've been awarded, instead of having to pay taxes on the attorney's fees. Right now, there's no way to deduct these fees. Requiring people to pay taxes on money that they never got in the first place creates a burden that many Americans can't afford, which then discourages others from pushing back against that financial fraud and abuse. My bill would end that practice and make sure that plaintiffs get all the money that's owed to them. I've also introduced the Investor Justice Act, which would address a significant gap in legal services. As I'm sure you know, small legal claims costs can run into the tens of thousands of dollars, and too many Americans can't afford to hold fraudulent companies accountable. But my legislation would create a grant program to fund legal aid clinics at law schools that can take on these small claims for investors. This is the benefit of being able to have partners at all levels, including in the legal system. These bills would make a difference for American families across our country and encourage more fair marketplace. So I'm going to continue to work on this legislation. Here's my ask of all of you in the CFA. I need your help to pass this. When you're on Capitol Hill, you're talking to legislators, you're talking to people that are interested in helping protecting consumers, I would hope that you would continue to talk about some of this legislation and help me get it through. It's the only way we are going to really address this at a federal level and have just encourage you to continue the dialogue. I know this, the other thing that is challenging for us, and we're talking about it on Capitol Hill, is artificial intelligence. That's a whole other realm that we're gonna have to deal with when it comes to fraud. We're already seeing it. We are on Capitol Hill, we are being proactive, we're mindful about our approach and what our role should be in putting up these guardrails and any regulation around AI. We just put out a blueprint on as senators, and we're gonna continue to work in this space. But my other ask of all of you is you're gonna be on the front lines of this and on the ground. You're gonna be hearing about these stories. You're gonna have a better understanding of how AI may be used to go after consumers. And I wanna hear those stories. I wanna know that we are doing everything we can at the federal, state, and local level to protect those consumers and address AI. Listen, we all know technology can be used for good, but we also know the fraudsters take advantage wherever they can. Wherever there's a loophole, wherever there's new technology. And at the end of the day, really, it's protect consumers and help individuals. And that's why I will always be a partner of CFA. I will always stand up for all of you. I wear a hat as the former Attorney General, a consumer protector. I will never lose that hat. I so believe in it, and I carry it with me every day in the Senate. And I thank you. Thank you again for being here, but for being out front and being the protectors for our consumers. You guys have a great conference. Thank you.